family members, our listeners, our viewers, our extended family. I've served the African American community for over 42 years, giving our city just what we need right now. Baltimore's inspiration station, Praise 106.1. From the Big Al Studio, Baltimore's #1 accident attorney.
I'm gonna try to find your phone stand.
It's the hood way, right?
Welcome to the Spirit in Mind broadcast with your hosts, Bishop C. Guy Robinson and Dr. Jonathan Shepherd, where we explore faith and mental health perspectives on current affairs. Let's get into today's discussion with the Spirit in Mind.
Great day, everyone, and welcome to Spirit in Mind, where we discuss current affairs with faith and mental health perspectives. I'm Bishop Guy Robinson, and it is a blessing to be with you again today, live on Praise 106 right here in Baltimore. Grab your friends, tell them, hey, pull the car over, reprogram your station, sitting at the light, turn it to Praise 106 because it's time for Spirit in Mind. Also grateful to have my colleague and co-host, Dr. Shepherd, with us. Great day, Dr. Shepherd.
Yes, great day, Bishop. How are you doing?
Today is a great day. This is the day the Lord has made, and I'm excited to be talking here on Spirit and Mind again. How about you?
It's a good day. It absolutely is. It's a day of where we are celebrating Black History Month. We are celebrating all the major accomplishments that were made by African Americans throughout the world. It's also a day of remembrance, and we do also send our condolences for all those who perished in that earthquake on the border between Syria and Turkey. I'm hearing 25,000 people may have lost their life in one event, and such a catastrophic event. And so we definitely send our prayers, and we're thinking about you. We're not just thinking about the folks here in Baltimore. We are globally minded, and we want to make sure that we're sending our prayers to those families.
Absolutely. And there are a whole lot of things going on in our world, in our nation, right here in Maryland, our state where we are, and in the city of Baltimore. A whole lot of things that, of course, can affect our mental and spiritual health. And so that's why we're committed to this time that we spend together on Spirit in Mind. And there's several ways you can get in touch with us because it's all about connection. Connection is key. Of course, we're glad to be live right now, but we certainly invite you to join us in several of the other formats that we have. Dr. Shepherd, would you go through some of the ways, if you don't mind, how you can stay in touch with us because connection is key?
Absolutely. And so we want to push our YouTube page for Spirit in Mind. We need to get more subscribers, and would love to see 50 new subscribers for this month of February. So if you're watching us on social media right now, I urge you just to flip over to YouTube and go there and subscribe to the Spirit in Mind YouTube channel. That way you will always get notifications of when we go live. So we want to increase our influence, our reach through our YouTube channel. Also, you can look us up on our social media pages through Facebook and Instagram. Go there, like us, go there and share. I'm also going to urge you to share. So if you're also following us and listening to us on social media, I want you to hit the share button right now. So 2 things will we say each week now. Go subscribe on our YouTube channel and hit the share button. We want to increase our reach. In addition, we have our own individual pages, Bishop C. Guy Robinson. If you're watching social media, you see the various ways you can reach out to him. He is a pastor, and he will definitely take care of any direct needs that you may have. And so also want to reach out, if you need to reach out, I should say, to me for some direct care needs for mental health services. Here is my information. You can go there, and I will do my best to make sure that you have the assistance that you need. We look forward to staying in contact with you. Remember, go there and share. And remember, go to our YouTube channel and subscribe.
Absolutely, because connection is key. And again, we discuss current affairs with faith and mental health. perspectives. And it is our goal that you would our goal is what uh, the First Thessalonians 5:23 prayer that you would grow both in spirit, soul, and body. May the very God of peace, sanctify you, keep you completely, and may your whole spirit, soul, and body, pneuma, suke, and soma, may they be preserved. And so that's our goal here. And we'd love to hear from you. If there are any discussions that you would find relevant, let us know. But thank you for joining us right now live on Praise 106 and right here in Baltimore. And you can also join us on our social media forums. Thank you for joining us. And again, dialogue is key. We've been talking about, we started out this year talking about the social phenomenon known as quiet quitting. People are walking away and or doing the bare minimum. And of course, we pointed out in our previous discussions that we have been through some existential crises triggering experiences from a pandemic. Existential crises make us aware of our mortality, make us aware, sometimes cause us to reprioritize and say this is what really matters in light of this. And we've talked about that. And we transitioned from that to talking about the need to also have not just all the time restructuring, but sometimes endurance and to staying in the process. For the scriptures do speak of after you have done, you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you might obtain the promise. And so there are certain promises and certain goals that we're trying to achieve that requires that word that Dr. Shepard said is sometimes an unpleasant word in our culture, that word of discipline. So, Dr. Shepard, let's talk a little bit more about discipline, but we are saying it from a perspective of wanting to encourage you to keep the faith and not be weary in well doing. Dr. Shepard.
Absolutely. And what we do each week, we lay the foundation and then we take off from there. And as part of laying that foundation, we make sure we know what the word discipline means. And so, discipline is the control gained by enforcing obedience or order or prescribed conduct or pattern of behavior. It is training that corrects, molds, or perfects the mental faculties or moral character. Faculties meaning your ability or power, the inherent capability or the function. So it's training that will correct or even mold what you already have inside of you. That is so important. There's potential. There's something already inside of you, but you have to be disciplined so that you can handle what's inside of you. Wow.
Yeah.
And then it's also the rule of systems that governs conduct or activity. And so that is what discipline is. And so where we've been talking about is how in the midst of feeling discouraged, in the midst of quitting, how do you remain disciplined? Because what we see is people who have literally given up. Or if they say, well, I haven't given up. It's just that I don't feel like doing this anymore, which the word apathy applies there too. Apathy simply means lack of motivation.
Right.
And we see so much apathy, or people are just apathetic. And Bishop, even as I was instructing and treating one of my patients this past week, it hit me that you can be apathetic and it turns to pathetic. You just drop the A.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that something? Again, we ain't coming for nobody out there, but if you remain in that state, you'll find yourself going from apathetic to being pathetic, and not people use that word in a derogatory way, but really it just means that you're not achieving where you should be achieving. You're underachieving, and so when you're disciplined, you may not always hit the mark, but you're definitely going to come closer to that mark, especially if you are able to control yourself and receive the training that's needed so that you can move forward. So, Bishop, that's the foundation for where we left off.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so important that we reiterate these foundations because, as you just said, certain words and terminologies have taken on negative connotations in our culture, sometimes due to past experiences and unaddressed or unreconciled traumatic experiences. And one of those words is discipline. Sometimes discipline takes on a negative connotation, and so when you start talking about discipline, people normally have past experiences, sometimes with maybe even traumatic or abusive situations, where we relate discipline to something that is, again, abusive or traumatic. But that is the intent, particularly biblically, as well as in terms of therapeutically. The concept of discipline is not necessarily automatically taken as punitive as much as it is didactic, which means that it says they're teaching opportunities. They are discipline literally means to take on a particular commitment, be it to a way of life or a way of thinking or a goal toward which we are achieving. It means even correction means to be made right. But sometimes our past experiences and abusive situations and traumatic experiences cause us to hear these kind of words like discipline and correction as an abusive kind of language and or punitive when actually discipline is part of discipleship. It's a part of learning. It's the state of learning the ways of God. It's a way of learning, or if you're in the medical disciplines, or if you're in the theological disciplines, or if you're in the scientific disciplines, artistic disciplines, there are certain protocols and ways to go about that. So, one of the reasons why we recap is so that we can clarify our intentions for persons who may have negative experiences with these kinds of words and this kind of terminology.
Yeah, and Bishop, I was just reminded as I just sat here and thought about what happened this past week. We heard from the President of the United States. He gave the State of the Union speech, and the Speaker of the House, McCarthy, he had urged his party, the Republicans, to exercise discipline as the president was delivering the address. And Bishop, as I watched and saw how there were various different ideologies of being shared by the president, he had the floor, he had the right to speak,
Mhm.
and the people did not exercise discipline.
Mhm.
And I'm not here to promote one party over the other, but I want to use it as a demonstration because what you have seen in our Congress just this past week was lack of discipline.
Mhm.
And I'm mentioning that because you have to be careful that when something that you may not like is being shared, that you don't get out of sorts.
Mhm.
Your training should kick in that even when you hear something that is out of order, you should be disciplined enough to be able to handle yourself so that you can maintain a certain decorum so you can get a job still accomplished and be able to hear what the person has to say and then be able to provide a rebuttal or whatever is necessary for this. Um, that's why so many people are quiet quitting because you don't know how to handle yourself when something happens that you don't agree with. Uh, yeah, let me tell you, this thing is so entrenched in us right now, Bishop,
Yeah.
because if you see your leaders doing this, what do you expect our children to do? What do you expect the people who are watching this? Well, millions of people are watching this. Even people in other countries are watching the State of the Union address, and people are booing. People are shouting liar.
Yeah.
People are shouting just all types of words that just really, I may not have agreed with everything what President Biden said, but I wasn't acting undisciplined because when you do that, you actually lower yourself. I'm about to end here. When you act undisciplined, you're not actually lifting yourself up. You're actually causing a spotlight to be on the issue that you lack within yourself, and that people sometimes forget. Now, I realize the society we live in. Dr. Shepard, I'm still going to do what I want to do, be who I want to be, and I could care less what people think. Well, okay, that's you. I hate to tell you, that's not how the world works, and it will come back to haunt you at some point in time, because that same way in which you treated that person when you did not show discipline, it will come back to you, and many times it'll come back to you even worse. So, Bishop, I was just thrown
That's
by
right.
that about this lack of discipline that's seen in our society.
That is so good because, of course, on Spirit and Mind, we discuss current affairs with faith and mental health perspectives. And so I would reiterate what you said, that this is not a partisan statement. It is in terms of Democratic and Republican and that kind of thing, but it is an analysis of human behavior. And what you raised is so important in terms of being able to have that emotional stewardship, to manage our emotions when we're in a moment. And even in that, what are the repercussions of the discrepancy between what we say we're doing and our behavior that is different, particularly even in leadership? For example, with that case, the idea is that you hear the State of the Union, and then there is an appropriate and designated time for a response from the other side.
Right.
And that's the process. But in practice, you come into the point of whenever I feel it, an emotionally driven outburst, and that lose the art of active listening, and being able to dialogue, and that inability to have conflict resolution skills spills over into our streets. It spills over into our children because they hear what we say, but they see what we do. And so that's so very important. Even with that same concept in mind, you begin to think, what does that mean when you just start yelling out because I feel it? And then the other piece is uh, um, the piece of we live in what sociologists are calling now an economy of attention.
Mm.
Attention is the new economy,
Mm.
where people will do anything to get attention. That's the philosophy behind that sociological. Anything to get a like, anything to get a follow, anything to get attention, whether it be good or bad. And so that yelling out and having outbursts, when we reward it with attention, then it suits its goal,
Wow.
because it suggests that the objective now is not to be to model leadership or to model principles, but it is to get attention for whatever platform I find to be self advantageous. And when we get to that place where attention is the goal in terms of being more important than principles and practices, but anything to get attention, when we crave attention, then any kind of extreme behavior and we try to outperform, and it results in the loss of civility. I'll close with this. One of the Webster Dictionary's words of the year for 2016, which kind of set the stage, was post truth. It says, and the post truth philosophy that we live in today has psychological and spiritual impact. Post truth means that the truth and the principles are not as important as the effect or the agenda that I want to have met. And so when we start doing anything, if we reward those kinds of outbursts, if we don't censure those kinds of outbursts, if we don't teach it, then we'll lose discipline on the altar of attention.
Wow.
That's all I got right there.
Wow. Wow. And and I teach also when I'm working with parents about attention, is that there is no such thing as good or bad attention. Just like there's no such thing, in my opinion, as good or bad PR. As long as you're talking about me, I'm okay with it. That's why certain celebrities, they're okay with you saying bad things about them or negative things about them, because you have their name in your mouth. And the same thing goes with attention. And Bishop, as you were saying that, it really demonstrated to me about how this cry for attention or need for attention is actually a lack of maturity. And as you are becoming disciplined, it actually is a marker for maturity and maturation,
Absolutely.
and which is what you've talked about in previous shows. And so that lets me know that as you are quiet quitting, you want to check yourself and say, have I gotten everything out of what I'm doing in this particular situation? Am I quitting because I lack the attention that I am craving? Am I quitting because I matured out of it? Uh, you know, these are the questions that you have to answer for yourself. Because when you find yourself just stopping because you have no more motivation, when you lack the passion, you're just burned out. You need to examine, how did you get to that point, and is that really the time for you to quit, or is it a time for you to get refueled and restored? And this is where discipline sets in. A lot of us are quietly quitting because we're not disciplined enough to do what it takes to stay refurbished and to restore. And that's where I was at last week when we're talking about the 3Ds of how to be able to make sure that you're okay with where you're at in this whole status of quiet quitting. What do you mean okay with being quiet quitting? Well, I just gave you the checkup that you need to do. You need to check to see what these 3Ds. And number one is your diet. What have you been feeding yourself? Have you been feeding yourself the negativity? Have you been feeding yourself the complaints that are occurring at the job? Girl, they always on our case. Man, they don't ever give us no break. They're always trying to take my overtime. My children, they just don't know what to do. I don't know. I mean, they make me want to pull my hair out. Well, I hear some of you all out there. You have all these different lists of complaints after complaint after complaint. And very well, some of them may be very true. They may be true. But when do you focus in on the positive? When do you focus in on the improvements? When do you focus in on what you take in? Because when I say diet, it's more than just what you're eating. Hear me on that. Diet has more to do with just the physical intake of food or the physical food that you intake into your body. What are you feeding yourself as you are watching various shows? What are you feeding yourself as you're hearing various things that are being said? Are you turning off the news? Are you part of the gossip channel? The live stream gossip that continues to flow. Are you making sure that, girl? I got to make sure I see what's up. What I got to see what the latest thing is. Wait a minute, that might be what's fueling you to be apathetic about the job that is to be done or the assignment that was given to you. You got to check your diet. What's fueling you? That will help in making sure that you're not assessing your status incorrectly. And that it definitely ties into your discipline.
Absolutely, and knowing when to turn off, because you said social media and other triggers. You got to know when your diet is affecting you. When it's certain diets make you feel sluggish,
Yeah.
you got to know when it's happening so that you can fast and or change from that. And so that's so very important. And I'm glad we're talking about quiet quitting in this context. I do want to revisit that because we talked about the State of the Union and the blow ups.
Right.
Quiet quitting and withdrawing and the need for attention of any sort being the payoff. And so that can manifest in two ways. We've been talking most recently about it just now about blow ups, but they can also, the need for attention or the quest for attention can also manifest as clam ups because people either blow up or clam up.
Wow.
The silent treatment can be just as driven by a need for attention as the outburst.
Wow.
Both have the same payoff seeking. And so quiet quitting can sometimes be a way of saying, I want to draw attention to this issue. And that certainly we talked about the balance, but it can also be a way of saying, I want to draw attention to me. And that's why sometimes we need help with persons to help us work through and talk through these emotions. That's why sometimes we need a conversation. Sometimes we need a word of deliverance and then a meeting of deliverance or a therapeutic session to finish the work of deliverance. Because all of it leads to the same goal. I want to be better. God can do some things miraculously. At the end of the day, I'm a bishop of the Lord's church, and I believe that God can heal and do things just like that. There are other times when God gets the glory out of a therapeutic process where he does it step by step, and they were healed as they went. But whatever you got to do, it ends at the same testimony. The Lord delivered me through this vessel or through that vessel, through the preaching vessel, through the altar work and the laying on of hands. All things are yours, Paul said to the church at Corinth, and because you are God's. And so work your resources. And that's what we're about here on Spirit and Mind, to hopefully awaken you to other resources and other tools and other ways of thinking that can stimulate thought and influence behavior. I know we're in our last couple of minutes, but hopefully we've been helpful to somebody today. Thank you even for chiming in here as we share from Praise 106. Dr. Shepherd, we're going to move into our last thoughts for today.
Absolutely. I want to reiterate what Bishop said. People will blow up or clam up as a result of seeking attention. And that is so true. And so I will ask yourself, is that you? What is your way of response? And again, it's normal, yes, but we want to make sure that you're handling it appropriately. And the way in which you do that is you check your appetite. So that's what I'm going to leave with today as we talk about diet, and we'll continue this conversation. But we need to check our appetite. And Bishop, I've been reading so much about the tree as that bears fruit, and I've been asking, Lord, check my fruit.
Mhm.
You know, make sure that that what I'm giving off is not stale fruit. That my appetite has not become wanting something that is stale. But the scripture talks about that you will be able to bear fresh fruit in each
Mhm.
season, my Lord. And
Yeah.
so that happens when you are allowing yourself to be disciplined and not allowing yourself to be apathetic and quietly quit or either blow up. It could be either one of the two. But there, I tell you, Bishop, so important.
Oh my goodness! Listen, we might have to pick up there next week because I preached on one of those texts about fruit bearing trees, and Jesus or the vineyard keeper having mercy on the fruitless tree. Say, let me dig around it, let me water it, let me fertilize it. He said, give it another year. I'm gonna
Mm,
preserve it so that it can be productive. So may this be the year that you tap into your productivity after whatever has caused you to be fruitless. May this be the year that you tap into your productivity. May the God who digs trenches create access to ways of healing and deliverance and victory for you. We hope that today's presentation of Spirit and Mind has blessed you. If it has, please feel free to share this and share it with someone. We're here every Saturday by the grace of God, and then again on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Whatever you got to do, you can watch a replay on any of our access stations. But let somebody know that Spirit and Mind is happening, and we pray that it helps you. And if God be our help, and He is our help, by His grace, we look forward to seeing you this time next week, next time on Spirit and Mind.